If your guess was mining, congratulations, you're right. We need stone. So, oh look, here's some right here. Now, at first, the closer you stay to your home base, the better off you're going to be. It's going to be more difficult for you to find your way home. You're not really equipped at first to take a long journey because you don't have weapons, you don't have really good tools, you're not really wearing any clothing. Yeah, it's just best to stay close to home at first, once you've picked your campsite. Now, let's see, how are we doing here? We have 25 stone. We have a ways to go. Now, I will tell you, with this little axe that you have at first, this little hammer, it takes quite a while to actually get everything that you need. And we are getting more dirt. That's fine. I have a use in mind for that too. Not a problem. Just be prepared that at first, your mining is going to be rather time consuming. Make sure that you know what's around you. Keep your ears open. This is a game where it is really good to have the volume up, because then you can hear the animals around you and you will know if anything is going to be a problem. You really want to avoid problems, trust me. Right now you are not prepared to deal with them. Later on, they won't even be problems. You will be so well prepared that they just won't be a problem at all for you. But we're not really there yet. Now, I don't want to dig us down into a hole here, so I'm going to move on to another spot. But first, let's go take a look here. Look at that. We have a drowned pig. Now, the pig is more helpful. We have ribs, and we have bacon. Yummy. All right, so we've got that from him. Let's go back over here. Look at this. There's a tungsten deposit here. We don't really absolutely need the tungsten right now, but we'll get some stone along with it. So I'm going to go ahead and take it. Now, we will actually want to go ahead and make that fireplace and make the little grill, the little spits to actually cook the meat on. A note about cooking meat, and you may have noticed this if you have watched some of the other people doing Rising World videos. If you wander away from it, you are likely to lose track of time and come back to meat that has been burned to a crisp. That's not very tasty. So I suggest that if you are going to cook meat, be prepared to stand there and watch it cook. I'm not joking. It can burn really fast. I know that there are some people who have worked to put together specific timetables in terms of how long things take to cook. I haven't experimented, so I'm not going to tell you how accurate any of those are. It's up to you to try that out and see if it's true. My advice is just to stand there and cook your food. Right now, with the current stage of development of the game, all you can cook is the meat. You can't cook any of the other food. Everything else you're just eating raw. Now, granted, everything else is really just vegetables, so that's not that unrealistic. If you are struggling to survive, you're going to be perfectly fine with a raw carrot. Trust me, you'll live. Eventually, there is a plan that involves actually having cooking, real cooking, be a part of the game, as in, like, I think maybe having flour, growing wheat. I don't know the exact details. That really hasn't been released too extensively, but I do know that that is planned. More detailed cooking is in the plans in the developers' plans. So that's something to look forward to. Ooh, more iron. We're going to want that, so we're going to grab that. Now, you can do a lot with the building system in this game. That is far more detailed than what we're going to get into right now. It's really going to be much more of a general overview, much more of a how to survive. So, with that in mind, there are going to be whole sections of things that we are just not going to touch on at all because they are far too complicated. So yes, it may very well seem like these videos are missing a few key components. I strongly encourage you, once you've mastered the basics of this game, that basically means once you can survive for, more than a day, then you really should watch some of the people who have more detailed tutorials, because what you can do with this game is amazing. Now, we're going to try and create something that's a little bit more level, kind of filling in some of the space around here with some of the dirt that we have. It's not going to be perfect. You can see that. Right now we don't have the tools to make it perfect, and that's not really a big concern. Like I said, we're worried about surviving at the moment. We're not really all that worried about whether or not our campsite looks pretty. Now, let's go ahead. Oh, we are one stone short. Drat. All right, we need one more piece of stone. Let's go over here and get our one more piece of stone. In a moment, we are going to want to sleep. It is getting dark. Tell me that it picked that up. It did. Excellent. But let's get our furnace down first. Craft that. Now we have our lovely little primitive furnace. These things are pretty darn small. Okay, there's the front of it. I want this to be somewhat level. There we go. Right click and hold to get that placed down. There we go. Now we're going to want a couple things. First off is going to be the iron. That's our biggie. So we're going to put the iron in here, and you will see these little holes or slots. That's where your ores go. When you are holding the ore, you can actually see it appear. Now, if you right click and drag, it will generally place that. You can just kind of drag it across. It's not perfect, but it will frequently do it. Now, this is the tricky part. There's no opening on the side of this primitive furnace, so you have to look and find the opening. When you have the lumber equipped, you'll actually see it go in, but we have something better than lumber. We have coal. So just right click and it keeps increasing that level. Perfect. Now I'm not going to turn it on yet because we don't want to have this thing going while we're asleep, because you could wake up to have no coal left. We're going to take a quick nap and be right back. All right. And a wonderful morning to everyone. Let's go over here, fire up our furnace, and that's just the F key. You'll see when you're hovering over the furnace, it looks like flames. Then when you push F to turn it on, it looks like flames with a stick drawn through them. Kind of the best way I can think of to describe that. So if you push F again, it's going to turn it off. Now, we're going to leave those there for a little bit because we want them to melt down so that we can use them. Now, what else do we need? We need logs because we need to build that little campfire. We're going to leave that going for a little while. You really do want to be careful about how long you leave it going for, but we know that we're going to be right back, so it's okay. Now, you always want to keep an eye out for any animals in your vicinity. We want this tree because we need some more logs. Now that you have your basic shelter and your basic crafting stations, your next goal is really to gather more resources. I would say spending your entire second day gathering resources is really not a bad idea, because you need a lot to get you started, depending on how you are planning on playing the game. There are people who play it as kind of like wandering explorers. Ooh, there we go. And they really don't need as much because they're not taking very much with them. Oh, look, broccoli. And that'll grow back. You can see the plant still there, so we can just kind of leave that. I don't really want the flowers. We're just going to drag those out of our inventory, drop them to the side. No need to keep them. We have 5 logs. We're really going to need a bit more than 5. We're also going to want more coal. So as we see that, we're going to go grab it. We're also going to grab some more stone because we used up all of our stone making that little furnace. So we are a little poor right now in terms of resources. We're going to go ahead and fix that. Not a problem. All right. Now, we are going to remain in the overall radius of our base camp, because if not, 1, we could get lost. 2, we could get caught out in the open when night comes, and we won't be able to see where we're going because we don't have a torch. And there are some really big holes in the ground, also known as caves. But when you're falling into something that you didn't see, it's really just an incredibly inconvenient hole in the ground. Let's be honest. It doesn't become an interesting cave until you can actually see where you're going and what you're doing. Now, next off, we're going to go and see about some more wood. We're going to do this carefully, keeping in mind that our home is over there on that little island, and that we don't want to encounter anything that wants to eat us. That's more tungsten. We really don't need tungsten right now. I'm going to leave it alone. That's copper. We don't need copper right now. I'm going to leave that alone. Let's see here. Ooh, that's cotton. We don't actually need it right now, so I'm also going to leave that alone. Once you get a little bit more advanced and a little bit more settled and stable in the game, then you're going to need those other metals. So it's a good idea to be able to identify them. You want to know that they're there because you're going to want to come back for them. But we have limited space right now, so I don't really want to carry them around. We're not quite to the stage where we can actually make storage chests. So we do have to be a little bit careful in terms of what we carry. So far, the trees don't actually hurt when they fall on you. It's just kind of silly that they do, so I step out of the way. But it really doesn't actually make a difference. All right, grab that. We'll go down here, get this. After we grab this, we're going to need a drink of water. You can see down there at the bottom right, our little water indicator is not looking very great. All right, so we may not have gotten any saplings from this one. You don't always. And that's why when you do, take them, because you're going to need them. Now we have more coal here, so I'm going to go ahead and grab this because I really want to keep our logs for kind of real uses for lumber. I don't want to burn it in the furnace unless we absolutely have to. Let's see here. Oh, that's another tree. Let's scurry over here. Nothing around here that wants to kill us. That's good. Let's take this. We're also going to want to do a little bit of foraging. Not too much because we do have some meat. So we are going to be able to eat quite well off of that. But it's always a good idea to have more than one thing to eat, because you never know when you might get occupied with something else and forget to go foraging. Say you find a particularly good vein of ore. Well, you're going to get really busy following that vein of ore, And you might forget that, when you left the house that morning, you didn't really have any food. And instead of looking for ore, you were supposed to be looking for food. So yeah, just to prevent those kind of situations, it's best to have multiple sources of food at all times. So we're just kind of keeping an eye out. As you're walking, you'll notice sometimes you'll notice this from a greater distance than others. Some things stick out more. But you might notice like that. It just looks a little bit different. Now, frequently it's not so much a different shade of green, but it's more like a different shape than what's around it. That's what I've found. So you really just kind of have to keep an eye on the grass. Over time, these things will stand out more. So don't worry if at first you're kind of wandering around looking at the grass going, what do you mean it's going to look different? It's all green. I know. It's all going to be green at first. I promise it gets better.